We are champions of Europe. Arsenal Football Club, Champions League winners. Has it settled in for you guys yet? Because I'm still kind of struggling to get to grips with that. It was 8 days ago, and still, it's one of the most amazing, insane things I've ever seen. I will yap about how trophies aren't necessarily the best measurement of success or how good a team is, and to that measure, I don't think that Arsenal are the best team in Europe. It's probably still Barcelona. That being said, we won the Champions League, and trophies just kind of have this way of making everything else that's happened in a season kind of go away. You forget they happened because all that matters is you won. And when you win something as big as the Champions League, then literally nothing else feels like it matters. And to that extent, with the men's side of things, it's been a very disappointing year. And yet, when I look back on the 2024-25 season, when I see that kit, all I'm going to think about is how the women won the Champions League, how awesome of a year it's been, crowned with a victory over the greatest team in the world. It's something that just doesn't come around very often, and it's so special when it does. It's probably something I'm going to be talking about 30, 40 years down the road. And I can't believe I've gotten to witness my team winning a Champions League. I never thought that was going to happen. And that has pretty much defined this season for Arsenal, which makes sense. It's the biggest silverware you can possibly win. And it's been just such a magical run to the final and then winning it. Stina Blackstenius writing her name in club folklore history forever. But the thing is, it wasn't just the Champions League. There was also a marked improvement in the league that I don't think we've seen in the past few years. It's been kind of frustrating watching Arsenal under Eidevall because it just kind of felt like we were plateauing into mediocrity. We never quite got where we maybe could have been. And Eidevall was really good against the top teams, and yet we never managed to really beat a low block when Eidevall was our manager. I think the first time I really started to believe in Slagers was the Tottenham game, because I was in the away end in the 2023-24 season to see Arsenal against Tottenham, and that was one of the most miserable games. It was a great experience to be in the away end, still the only time I've been in the away end, awesome time there, but the game was so infuriating, because we had I think it was 13 corners over 30 shots, and maybe 5 of them were on target. We could not beat the mid or low block at all. And then Tottenham caught us on the break once, they scored, and they won the game. Such a disappointing result, and it wasn't the only time we got results like that. It felt like this was kind of the norm under Eidevall. We'd do pretty well, but still kind of have enough disappointing results that it wouldn't matter too much at the end. We got 9 out of 12 points against Chelsea and Man City last season and finished third. That's massively disappointing. And so when the Slagers took over in October, it was definitely time for Eidevall to go. I will argue that he wasn't as bad as a lot of the fans said he was. I think he was. Again, it was time to go, but I don't think it was as horrible as a lot of fans said. But still, I wasn't super excited when I first saw Schlagers taking over because she had been working as an assistant under Eidevall, and so I had kind of assumed it would be more of the same until we got a different manager. Little did I know that Schlagers is literally the greatest manager to ever stand on the touchline, and that is no exaggeration. Absolute GOAT. Absolutely changed everything about this team because talking about the Tottenham game, I believed in her when all of a sudden we were slamming Tottenham, destroying them. That was a team we really, really struggled with last season. And all of a sudden, we put up 9 goals on them this season. That's crazy. And we weren't struggling against low blocks anymore. We were fully playing up to our potential. And maybe that was always what this team was capable of, but it didn't feel like it, not under Eidevall at least. It felt like we were just, it was so disappointing and annoying to watch us struggle when you could tell that we could probably do more. And it feels like Slagers has fully unlocked this team. I mean, Russo had kind of fallen back a bit from that really great season she had at Manchester United. And Slagers has once again gotten the best out of her, and she's had an amazing season. Arsenal has had an amazing season where we aren't struggling anymore, and that showed in the second place finish. And I know it's not first, but when we finished third 4 out of the last 5 years, that is a big deal, I think, and a good sign of improvement. It would have meant that we skipped the first round of qualifying, but since we won the Champions League, we won the Champions League. Since we won the Champions League, we skipped qualifying altogether. So brilliant to see. So the good thing for next season is now we got to see what we can do against Chelsea, because that has to be the goal now. We are European champions, so we got to think that we're a team that can win the league. And Chelsea didn't leave much room for error. They took 60 out of a possible 66 points. But for the most part, we actually were keeping up the pace with Chelsea. So, I mean, there were a few blips. And I'll talk about those in just a little bit. But for the most part, we were winning games very comfortably, winning most of them and keeping up with them. The issue was we lost both games against Chelsea. One of those was under Eidevall. So, we can put that one aside just a little bit, because this is Slager's team now, and we've looked very different under Rene Slagers. But we still lost that game at Stamford Bridge. It was a fairly even game where they ultimately were able to turn to a star-studded bench, whereas Arsenal, whilst having a very good team, doesn't have quite the same depth that Chelsea does, and they pulled through. They got a win at the end, and we couldn't do that. So if we want to win the league next season, first and foremost, we have to be able to beat Chelsea, but we also have to avoid little slip-ups, because there were two moments, really, when we kind of let the standards slip. One was that run where we got knocked out by Liverpool in the FA Cup, and we, I forget who it was in the league, but I'm pretty sure we had a disappointing result there, or maybe it was just the Champions League and FA Cup. I'm not completely sure, but that was the start, like right after the January break, when we were down 3-1 to West Ham at one point, and even when we did pull through, that was still a bit worrying, and we struggled against Everton Slovak for a while. It felt like we were maybe slipping back into what they were under Eidevall, but then we kind of rectified that pretty quick. And Slagers then got the tactics spot on against Real Madrid in the second leg, and we didn't really look back from there until right after we'd beaten Lyon. Once again, we had this weird little standard slip again, where we suddenly shipped in 12 goals in 3 games. And how you have one of the best defenses, maybe the best defense in the league for most of the season, and then concede 12 goals in 3 games, that is very, very weird. And I've kind of just chalked this up to a weird result happening, because there probably did have one eye on the Champions League final, and that kind of makes sense. Still, you can't really have moments like that. Again, I think it is just sometimes weird things like that happen, but still, that was quite worrying, and we can't have little slip-ups like that if we're going to catch a Chelsea team that set the standards so high this season. On the topic of the Champions League again, I don't think this run was lucky. Not at all, because we got the tactics perfect against Barcelona, against Lyon, and against Madrid, at least in the second leg of the Lyon-Madrid game. And even in the first leg against Lyon, it was more of the players not quite living up to the standard before playing a perfect game in the second leg. So I think there was a certain degree of magic to that Champions League run. Not luck, but magic that might be hard to replicate. I don't know if we're going to be champions of Europe again. Part of what made it so special is that we weren't expected to do that. And I kind of worry about if we can catch Chelsea in the league. I think we very well might finish second again. I just don't know if we're quite there to take out Chelsea in the WSL yet. We could definitely give the League Cup and FA Cup a good run. It'd be really nice to get our hands on the FA Cup again, because it's been 10 seasons now since we last won the FA Cup, which for a club as historic and successful as Arsenal, that is pretty disappointing to see. And so those certainly are something we can target to get back on. But I think there's definitely some moves we could still make in the transfer window to improve this team more and try and go again. We're the big dogs now in Europe, which is crazy to say, but we were the defending champions. I'm just not sure if that's something that's going to be replicated. And I think whilst we've definitely stepped in the right direction, and this is honestly the most excited I've been for Arsenal in a really long time, there's still some improvements that maybe we can make, and we can't let standards slip like we did a few times in the season. That being said, I've talked about Schlagers a lot because of how massive of an effect she had on this season. What's got to be scary for everyone else is this is Schlager's still very young and inexperienced. She's only like a year older than Kim Little, very young manager, and if this is what she's doing at this age, when she doesn't really have that much managerial experience, just imagine what we're going to be doing in 3 years' time. It's honestly like, it's just beyond words. And I can't believe what Slagers has done with this team in such a short time. I can't believe there was ever a time when I was worried that we might need to get someone else. That was only just when she took over. And very quickly I got on board with her when I was seeing the results. I made a video in January saying that we should wait till the end of the season to extend her contract, but I think I was wrong there, and I'm glad we gave her the contract when we did because she's clearly one for the future and one that we're going to continue to thrive under. So now let's talk about like signings that could get us to the next level. It's a somewhat aging core like Williamson, Kim Little especially, McCabe, like the few players that have been in this club forever, it feels like they're not getting any younger. And I hate to say that because like these are players who have given us so much, and I don't think it's time to move on yet. Obviously not. We won the Champions League, but like in a few seasons time, they probably are players that we're going to have to move on from, and that's kind of sad. And that's always what happens when players age. So perhaps we want to think about what we can do to replace them, not now, but in the future. We might already see that like Cooney Cross, Kafaji, players like that very clearly are the future for us. Uh, it's kind of like I don't really know what to say with improvements because it's hard to say we need to improve on stuff when we've won the Champions League. I just think that there probably is still stuff we can do to improve if we want to catch Chelsea, whether that be improving our depth or getting another player like Mariona. Because Mariona was the player of the season in the WSL for good reason. I don't think we would have been anywhere near as good as we were this season without Mariona. So Chelsea probably has the best team, but Arsenal does have the best player, and we let's see if we can get another Mariona. So that's where we are. It's a really fun time to be an Arsenal fan, and I am so excited to see what we can achieve in this season and the next one. And right now, it kind of just feels like the sky's the limit, and I can't wait for more. So I'm really excited. And now the Euros are coming up. It'll be a nice little break in the summer. Get some fun international football. I'm quite excited for the Euros. I'll have a preview out for that probably in like a week before the tournament. So that's like a month down the road. Uh, it's exciting. It's such a nice time to be an Arsenal fan right now, and I can't wait for the future.